Okay. So what I'd like to do is have you guys start working on, you could either start, probably the best place to start without my direct help is at the strategic plan builder. So open up your Freedom Point calculator, play with the numbers on your Freedom Point calculator until you get to numbers that you want. And I'll tell you that when it comes to your desired income, that doesn't necessarily mean what it is today. If you're planning for something in the future, start putting those numbers in that you'd really want and you'd really be happy with. Somebody like Amit and I have worked on this, and he's not looking for forever money. He's looking for transition. And so when we played with this for him, he just mapped out what would it take for him to be able to sell his business, net enough money that he could comfortably launch his next endeavor and not have to take a paycheck for a few years, but still be able to fund stuff inside the business. So you can play with this any way you want, and then move into your strategic plan builder and start playing your what if game. See, we've got, looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we got 8 people. We got about an hour. So I'm going to start pulling you guys in for one-on-ones. We're going to go about 6 minutes and on the one-on-one, and then I'll pop you out and I'll grab somebody else into the one-on-one. I encourage you, as you're working through both this strategic plan builder, and then if you get done with that, start going into your Freedom Point calculator or your Freedom Tracker and start filling out your goals inside of there as well. I encourage you to, if you have questions, ask it of the group. Well, if you're not in the one-on-one session, but then I'll be, getting to everybody for the one-on-one. Everybody have the time today to stick around for the one-on-ones? I know that Sasha had a conflict where he had to go pick up his son, and so he has had to jump out early. Okay. Also, even though the main group is being recorded, inside of the breakout sessions, those are not recorded. So for those of you who are going to create copies of something and have them live someplace besides the shared folder, anything that we share inside of the breakout session still remains confidential. All right. So who'd like to go first?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Mike.
I got a question for you guys in the group. Like if you were using the Freedom Point calculator, and then the first question, the desired annual income, and let's say it's something that you're making roughly now, or you'd like Greg was just saying, doesn't have to be what you're making now. It could be what you want to make or whatever. And let's say it is something like what you're making now, or like a little bit more, but your time span is going to be like 10 years. You want to sell in like 10 years or retire in 10 years or whatever. I guess it'd be kind of a basic question. What would that change in 10 years or 5 years or whenever? You'd have to kind of look at what the growth, like how much inflation is going to go up. What's the cost, like the cost of living index or something like that, right? You'd probably want to apply something like that to see what you're making now would be 10 years from now. Have you guys got any idea on how you would calculate that or how you would think about that?
Great question. No idea.
Yeah, I think we all need to expect inflation.
Yeah,
no
Mike,
idea.
what's the inflation going to be? What are things going to be 10 years from now or 5 years from now or something? Maybe Greg could kind of shine a little light on, we all know what we'd like to make or what we're making now and what we'd like to make in retirement, but what are the responsibilities? What other things? I mean, it's really kind of a hard number to put down, I think, especially if it's going to be 10 years from now. So,
well, and I think the other side is what debt you have now. Do you assume that debt will be gone in 10 years, or will you
right.
acquired additional debt. I mean that because when I was thinking of it, I was like, I could keep the number the same as what it is. I expect my debt to actually be lower in 5 years than it is today. Then my wife started adding all these things she wanted to buy. So then I was like, maybe I ought to raise that number.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's hard. It can go up. 1 minute you can think of it as like, oh yeah, I won't need this and I won't need that. And so, but then, kids are done with college and all that stuff too. House is paid off or whatever. I'm not going to be, how much am I going to travel? How much? Right. So, yeah, it's kind of a hard starting point.
Yeah, it might be a good question for us to ask him when he comes back.
Who'd like to go next?
I can go next.
All right, Ivan.
Hey, Greg.
Yeah, Will.
No, Joe.
Well, Joe. Hey.
We all kind of had a couple quick questions.
Sure.
First of all, I guess my freedom tracker is in other people's folders, so they're all editing it. But I think they figured that out. But second, I think it was who was asking? Maybe it was
Mike.
Jake.
Mike was asking.
Mike. Yeah.
It was Mike. Yeah.
Go ahead and ask Mike.
I just threw it out there, Greg, that I was just wondering, like when you look at the freedom point calculator, and the first question is like desired annual income.
Mm-hmm.
And you were saying, yeah, it doesn't have to be what you're making now. It could be, it could be what you really not want or really need or whatever at retirement or at when you're selling the business.
Mm-hmm.
I was just thinking, for me, like maybe 10 years, I don't know, it's going to be hard to tell, like 10 years from now, or maybe between 5 and 10 years from now. And I'm just kind of thinking of, well, what's it going to be if I'm making a certain amount now? What's it going to be 10 years from now? What is it going to have to be based on inflation, based on, you start thinking of a lot of things. So
yeah,
just seem to be, I mean, I guess if you just kind of looked at it like, hey, all right, if I'm under the same, situation now, all my debt or most of my debt is paid off and I'm at retirement age, and what's, the cost of living going to be, what percentage is it going to go up per year on average and things like that, to kind of get a little bit better handle on what that desired annual income should be. And just wondered if you could shed a little light on that.
Sure. So, the inflation adjustment is, outside the scope of that particular tool at this point. I might add it in the future. Back when I was in that business, we used to plan for about 3%. That's all over the map, depending on how you define it, how you define inflation. I would say that for planning purposes, for today, I would just err on the side of more money wanted. So,
Okay.
Just to keep it simple, right? And
Right.
This is not meant to replace a wealth manager that you may be working with or future you might work with. This is meant to give you enough understanding of what you have control over in your business to get to an end result, so that you could have a much better conversation with a wealth manager about what it is you want them to help you do. Because usually you show up at the wealth manager's office and they say, okay, cool, you own a business, awesome, what's it worth? You tell them, I don't know, but I think it's worth a whole bunch. They use that number, and then they say, what's your number need to be to retire? Well, we were going to get like $1 billion off the sale of this business later, so I'm just going to help you problem solve this other little gap. Usually most people don't know what their number is. So a simple starting point is just start with what you're currently making. I would say gross that up, though, if you're not currently making a lot compared to what you want. Right?
Got it.
If somebody is like, hey, right now things are kind of lean. I'm only pulling, $100,000 all in out of my business, which is, fine for what I need personally right now, but it's not what I want to plan for. And I don't need to spend $100,000 later, but I'd like to have resources that kick out way more than $100,000 so that I have choices when inflation goes up, or my grandkids I want to do stuff for, or I want to travel. You know, I went through this with Will. I won't share his numbers, but in order to get to a 10-year plan that made sense for him, he had to jack his desired income in that calculator way up. And it was a struggle for him initially because he's like, well, I'm not going to spend that much money. I didn't come from money like that. You know, I came from relatively nothing and I built this. So everything I got now is more than I ever thought I would have. And that's okay. But it's a different way of thinking about it, saying it's not about how much I think I'm going to spend like greedily on a consumption track, but it's about resources that you need to have the ability to control and direct for your benefit, for your family's benefit, for your community's benefit. So if we're going to plan for something, let's plan for what you want. And if you're not sure where that is, start with what you're currently making. And we can always dial it in over time.
Got it. Yeah, I'm gonna meet with my financial guy actually on Thursdays. So
yeah, so
we'll get a better grip on that then.
We'll spend some time today, but then also, why don't you make sure you come to our office hours on Wednesday to get some extra one-on-one time on that, so that when you go there on Thursday, you're dialed in with what you need.
That sounds great, Greg. Yeah, last couple of Wednesdays have been really tough for me. So
That's okay.
We'll
yeah, see if you can make it happen. If not, you know, we'll figure something out. But see if you can make that time happen. Were there other questions, Joe, that the group brought up other than that?
No, that was it, I think.
Does that give everybody clarity on how to use that?
Yeah.
tool?
Hey, Greg, I have one follow-up question.
Sure.
So let's say if you sell within 5 years, there probably going to be some sort of earnout, right? I mean, maybe not. But if it is, it's just not included in the Freedom Point calculator, right? It just, your earnout is just on top.
No, your earnout is part of that number.
Okay, so annual income will consist of your earnout and what are you going to be taking from your investment?
Yeah, so, you know, let's use simple math. Let's say that the transaction price is $10 million and you're not getting all 10 million at the closing table. Let's say you're getting, just for easy math, you're getting 5 million at the closing table and then $1 million a year for 5 years. You know, on an earnout based on, let's assume that, you know, you follow Gene's advice and you negotiated properly, that you're confident in your ability to hit the numbers and how they're going to be calculated, that you feel in control over. So you feel confident that I can do this for 5 years and I can hit those goals, right? Okay. So then you get your 5 mil lump sum. Then you also get $1 million a year for the 5 years.
But if you also, have a contract, if you stay in with the company for the next 5 years, you salary.
Yeah, the deal structure could be all over the top of that, right?
Yeah,
you know, they could have, you know, a transition thing, a consulting. They could have accelerators. Hey, listen, if we hit these numbers, but if you exceed them, we'll pay you more. You have the ability to get, you know, 12 or 15 million out of this instead of 10.
Got it. Okay, cool.
So any other questions? All right, cool. Let me pull Ivan into the room real quick.
To share with the group, as I was just thinking about it, you know, Jake mentioned how would debt impact the Freedom Point as the debt goes down. The same goes as I'm looking at my strategic plan builder. You know, as income increases, so will savings, and so will outside investments. And I think that's an interesting equation because I'm looking at the realistic, plan builder, and it's like, all right, well, I think like Will said, it's, I don't need that. Or as Greg referred to Will saying he doesn't need that money. Well, we're going to have other investments. So I'm looking at it going, gosh, how do you factor that in? Because I'm not just going to increase my consumption on an annual basis. So it's going to change that Freedom Point. But I'll look forward to asking Greg about that. But does anybody have thoughts on that? I'm not sure my question is even clear.
Could you rephrase your question?
Yeah, so with each passing year, the EBITDA is going to increase at a rate that far exceeds my consumption of the cash. And so right. the difference is going to go into other investments or savings, which is then going to impact, the the investments that we have outside of this calculator. And so as I was just looking at the 10-year projections, and I'm going to have a lot more investments outside of this calculator, this business, over the next X amount of years. I'm just trying to, it's kind of the same idea of how do you factor in debt or inflation.
Jason, yeah, and I battled the same question as I was going through mine. And what I tried to do is I tried to envision, one, I immediately I set up an appointment with a financial advisor / estate planning project, and I'm meeting with them actually on Friday, so that they can help me with the long-term picture of my personal finance and investment. I've also started to do a property investment as part of my portfolio. And I started to think, okay, well, I've got one. I think over the next 5-10 years, I'll probably have about 4 of those properties, estimating me 40 to 60,000 a year in, recurring revenue. And then after talking to my financial provider, I'm going to think about, okay, I'm going to show him this plan and what the potential cash flow each year will be, right? And they're going to build me a plan so I know my financial investments, and I can plug that back into this thing too. And so it's sort of using Greg and a financial advisor to look at the business, but still I got a whole team that I got to work with from my personal finance standpoint. And so at this point, I'm talking to them and just at least getting a ballpark figure so I can factor that into this freedom calculator. Cause you're absolutely right. If like I looked at this, Greg, and I go, I only want you to make like 350 a year. And he's like, but you could make $1 million a year. I'm like, oh, okay. So that changed. Now that's going to change the conversation I have with my financial and tax planner on Friday. Right. And then the work that we do will go back into here. And it's just sort of it's going to be a thing that I think we're going to be massaging over years. Right. But this is supposed to be at least a baseline. So I think I would estimate, like as much as you can before you talk to that personal financial advisor and really get a better idea.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. So what I did on that, Jay. Look, go ahead.
Nope, wasn't going to say anything.
I was going to say what I did is when we did this initial planning, I came out with a number where I want my investment to be when I retire, my additional investments. So, and then where I'm at now. So on line 5, I just played with that number because it's if I get to the number I want, it's really nice. I'm done. If I put in where I'm actually at now with what my investments are, I still got a lot of work to do. So I used it to go, okay, I expect, like Will was saying, my investments to be at X in 5 or 10 years. But for everything we're doing, I'm like, I'm not there. I still got work to do to get those investments up. So I'm just going to plug in what I'm at now. And I think Will's right, as you adjust. And in his cases, he adds more properties, and he'll go back and update that income is the way I see it going. But I'm using the more scary number right now.
Got it. Cool. Thanks for the input.
Yep. Hey, Will, I got a question. Is the Colorado property, did that come out of the work you've been doing here as starting to diversify your investments?
Yeah. The way I look at it, because of I have a bootstrap business where I'm not doing any outside funding. I need to create other income. And so I've got 2 things. One's the property investment, and then one's my second business I have a partner with, which is actually a lead gen for this business. It's like a professional community. And so I factored in, what the growth plans for that business are into my outside business sort of recurring revenue, outside investments. And then I calculated if I have 4 properties at the time of exiting, and factor that in. So, an additional $250,000 in revenue annually that's outside of this business.
Awesome. Well, bravo on jumping on that and making that happen, because I'm basically need 4 properties too. But I said I'm going to wait for everything to slow down before I start jumping.
No, I'm not going to do this all at once. I got really lucky. Our first home, we kept it as an investment property and just rented it out here in Austin, and then the market went nuts. and it doubled in value in a year. And so we sold it, and then I'm using that as my cushion to start investing in other properties in other areas where I think that'll happen, like Durango and other up and coming metros.
All right. Awesome.
Yeah, and then turning those
Great that you guys
Airbnbs.
are,
Yeah,
it's great that
That's very cool.
you guys are
That's
doing that. I've been funneling like for the last 6 or 7 years, like pretty much taking any profit from the company and funneling it towards property investments and other investments. So I'm trying to, my plan's always been to take money from here, kind of farm that profit, you know, and put it over here in real estate and apartment rentals, things like that. So, you know, I know who said, Jake, you said you're going to wait, I think. But,
Yeah.
you know, I thought I should have waited like 7 years ago, and I'm really glad I bought then. So you just never know. Like,
interest rates are so low right now, it's not sustainable.
Yeah, they're not going to stay that low for, well, they could, I guess, but probably they're not going to stay that low. And with property values rising, if your rates are fixed for 30 years,
True.
and inflation does hit, your property value goes up, your payments stay the same. So, you know, there's never, you never know if it's the right time or the wrong time. But just for my advice, I've just been doing it consistently every year, and it's you know, kind of averaging it out, dollar cost averaging almost.
Yeah, especially with the way the economy's been.
Let me steal somebody else while you guys are having this discussion. How about Jason? Jay?
Sure.
All right.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, same thing for me. It's each year, you know, I upgraded the house, kept the other investment property, and sold that one, getting another one, and it just, for me, just farming that out to a management company. They take care of everything. They do take for the short-term rentals like 30%, 30 to 35%, but they'll do a revenue calculation for you before you buy a house if you're thinking about it. And I had them do a revenue calculation to see if it all works out. And as long as the properties pay for themselves plus some residual income, it's a good add to the portfolio.
Yeah, I think my kicker is I sold all my properties I had in 19 and then watched the market blow up. And I was like, shit. But I just got tired. I had long-term rentals and I got tired of managing them.
Oh, it's a pain. It's a pain. I tried landlording myself in through the pandemic, and I tell you what, that's the last time I'll ever do it again. You know, for long-term rentals, you can get a management company at 7 to 10%.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
don't even never have to think about it again. And then the short-term rentals are 30, 35%, but your revenue's way higher, you know. Right. And what I found too with the short-term rentals, there's less damage to the property because
right.
people are only staying like 4 or 5 days, 3 days here and then. And there's a maintenance guy and a cleaning service coming in every time. Yeah. And so my property's being meticulously maintained.
Yeah, that was my problem with long terms. Is after $20,000 bill, I was like, I'm done.
Every time someone moves out, yeah. I had somebody drive the moving truck into my house. They skipped out on rent, drive the truck, backed it into my garage, knocked out the brick outer wall, left all their junk and drugs and all crap in my house, and for me to clean up, and just left.
In one statement, you had me convinced that I need to get back in, and then go, nope, that's why I got out.
But that was me managing it, right? As soon as I put it over to a property management company, and they were vetting people, and making sure their credit was good and stuff like that, I haven't had an issue like that again.
Yeah, I don't deal with any of it either. Like, we're all good at our own prospective businesses.
Yeah.
Mine isn't management of properties. So I let somebody else do that. I pay them to do that. I think of it really as having an employee, kind of, who I interview and pick the right employee, and then have them manage my property. And we have those issues too, but somebody else deals with it. It's a lot less stress on me.
It's worth it in the way that these homes are appreciating in value, at least right now. It's a no-brainer.
We're in a lot of apartments, me and my business partner, and man, those have been crazy because it's a totally different thing. Like when you qualify for an apartment, you apply for a loan, like they don't check your credit, they don't do anything. And it's easier for me to get a loan on a 10-unit apartment than it is to get a loan on a house. It's crazy. Like you
just can't find them, at least here in Austin. I can't find any duplex, triplex apartments, anything.
They're there. You got to look for 5-unit and more, because a 5-unit is a commercial loan, and so they're way easier to get. And it's crazy because you can add value to the property. Like what we did on the one here in Phoenix is we bought it when it was renting at $600 a unit per month, which is really low for where it was.
Mm-hmm.
We put 10 grand in each unit, and we had it reappraised based on the new income. And we were able to cash out all of our initial investment, which was like 90 grand each for 3 people. And we still own the apartment complex and it cash flows. And we did all that without having to pull credit, without having to do anything. And it's tax-free. So,
well, I'll tell you what, the single family resident for investment property mortgage process for a self-employed individual right now is nothing short of giving blood. It was grueling, awful. Having a major bank go, oh, well, you know, your revenue declined in 2020. You may not be a viable business. I was like, you can't have done more revenue this year than all of last year. What small business didn't decline in revenue in 2020? Please, I'd like to, who wasn't in, food distribution or, Zoom, right? Like, it was demoralizing to say the least.
They want a lot. It is demoralizing. It totally. There's got to be a better way. It's crazy.
Cash.
I miss the days of stated. Cash would be the way to go. But gosh, what a waste to put that much cash when mortgage rates are so low. You can get a 2% interest rate. I can make 10% on that money elsewhere.
Yeah.
So mortgages.
Well, the point is, we just keep saving, keep investing, and it pays off.
Put that money to work.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't like just sitting in a bank account doing nothing.
Exactly. Well, hopefully try looking for 5 units and above. I bet you can find one, because they're there. Like big firms want your huge apartments, and then people don't think about those 5-unit, 6-unit, 10, 12 units. Like they're kind of a lost, forgotten thing, but they're a really good entry to learn how to do it, especially if you're familiar with just having your own house rental. You can definitely do it. So something to look into. If you have any questions, you can always call me.
All right, cool.
Talk to you about it.
Yeah, I think my father-in-law does a lot of that. He started really early here with some commercial properties. I may eventually have that portfolio.
Yeah, you'd be a good guy to talk to then, for sure.
Yeah.
Joe, do you have a second business other than the property too? Or a third business, I guess?
No, just the painting, but I've got a couple different, I guess you call them businesses, but they're all related to investment properties.
Okay.
So nothing other than that.
Does your tax guy have you do a separate LLC to put all this under?
I have my tax guys, I keep them busy. I think we have 1, 2, 3, 5 LLCs plus the main business, so it's a little bit hectic at the end of the year, but you have to do it that way to protect yourself, right?
Yeah, I'm about to go through that whole process.
Yeah, and we do that because it makes it easier when you do go to a bank to refinance a commercial property. because they look at that LLC as a business who's funding the property instead of you individually. You know, if you treat it like a business, they'll treat it like a business. So it actually, by doing that, the last couple of years, we're able to buy a place that we can rent now for our business. We've always been renting, but now we're buying a place that we're going to close on next month. So
let me make, I'm sorry to interrupt, Will. Let me just quickly make a clarification that Jay brought up, and I think it was one that might be confusing for lots of people. So on your Freedom Point calculator, that line that says, you know, I think it's line 5, you know, non-investment income, that's really meant to be not your assets under management withdrawal. So in other words, I've got a pile of money that my investment guy or gal is managing for me, but then maybe I also have real estate investments. I have dividends from, maybe I have ownership interest in another business. It's just other sources of what you deem to be reliable income that are not attached directly to your business or not attached directly to the pile of money that you're giving your investment guy that you're going to peel your 3, 4, 5% off a year for. In essence, the more of that other reliable income that you have, the less heavy lifting your nest egg needs to produce. Just gives you more choice and control. Another thing that came up is, you know, Jay brought up a great idea, and I'll work on, you know, trying to figure out a way to incorporate it. But, you know, looking out into the future on the strategic plan builder, you know, he's like, well, you know, if I'm hitting these numbers, I'm probably accelerating some of the investment stuff like Will's talking about right now. And in which case, doesn't that alter things, right? Doesn't that change my Freedom Point number? Because I would not necessarily need all that income that it's showing my business is producing 5, 6, 7, 8 years down the road. And so I'll think about ways that maybe we could add an additional line in there on that strategic plan builder, where you could plot out like expected future reliable income. So this is that line 5 stuff that we just talked about for other investments that you're doing. This would not include I'm putting money into a mutual fund. This would be like I'm investing in real estate or something that's going to give me an income that I'm pretty confident in for whatever reason. And I don't know exactly when I'll be able to pull that together, but just know it's on the roadmap. Let me see if I can find a way where you can map out some of that and I can tie it back to that line 5, which then would reduce the Freedom Point value that you need to hit. In other words, it's accelerating your Freedom Point. It's reducing not your Freedom Point value, it's reducing the value of the business you need to sell to hit your Freedom Point. Either way, it's good for you. You can get where you want faster. So that's why, I mean, that's why we call this the, you know, lifestyle accelerator. When we start doing these things and tracking them, all of a sudden we find the levers that we can actually accelerate stuff and have it tie back directly to what you want, not just hitting a random goal in your business that I wanted to hit X million, which is cool, but it's so much more powerful when you tie it directly to what you really want personally. And like Will said, when you merge those two worlds, all your business planning with your personal planning and put it on a common language, like that strategic plan builder, that's when I think, you know, your creative juices get flowing and you can partner with your Cultivate advisor to say, how can we move this faster? How can we do this? How can we do it more? If I've got a team, can you start working? Can we divide and conquer? Can you start working with not just me every other week? Maybe let's add a session or two where I got you working with my team on very specific stuff that's going to hit these targets faster. So, okay, let's see. Amit, let me grab you.
Well, on the call, has everybody got figured out whether you got a goal date to sell or if you're really just trying to do this to get it where it just runs and you keep it?
I'm
definitely on the operational exit side of it. I'm not looking to sell in the foreseeable future.
Okay.
Same. Operational. Now that I've got a really solid leadership team and really building them into entrepreneurs, I think what I really want to look into is what the ESOP model could do, to where, you know, I could get majority of that ownership into that leadership team and employees' hands, but still keep some, you know, still keep a percentage of ownership into, well into retirement or the next thing I go on to do. But I'm operationally completely out of the business. I'd say I'm probably already about, now I've hired this last leader, I'm already probably about 80% out operationally.
Oh,
Nice.
Yeah, which, you know, was able to take a 3-week vacation last month for the first time in 6 years. So
cool.
it's getting there.
That's awesome.
How about you other guys?
I have a business partner who's ready to exit, but I want to just exit operationally, which I've already kind of been able to do. But he is in the business every day, working really hard. So that's kind of tricky. We're trying to figure that out for him. But this class is helping me with that, kind of understand what that looks like, you know.
Now he wants to exit completely or exit operationally?
He wants to exit completely.
Okay, who's your photographer, right?
Well, he has to exit operationally first before he can exit completely. So, you know, if he leaves right now, he'll leave a big gap. It'll be hard.
At least this will help you get the math right, you know, and know when and be able to start planning for that.
Right. Well, and like, you know, if he does exit completely, can we just buy him out, and what would those numbers even look like remotely? I think that's kind of interesting. I'm getting that a lot from the class. So, and just, you know, a checklist of what we need to do to build a stronger business. We're not even close to some of these numbers in these Freedom Point checklists. I don't know where you guys are at, but I'm like, whoa, we got a long ways to go.
Well, and that was one of your levers earlier, is he's doing the bulk of the photography, right? So you've got to get somebody to step up into that role as part of it. Yeah.
Well, it's like financially kind of an issue, you know, because we have 7 photographers here, but he does the work of 3 photographers. So that's like a lot of yeah, that's a lot, right? And we do have a manager that can kind of fill his role, I think, to a certain extent, if we start now. But it's like, how do we hit the revenue numbers where we can bring in 3 to 4 extra photographers on, you know? So, and then also pay his exit, whatever his buyout would be. So those numbers are all in consideration as well. So we got to grow a lot. But,
awesome.
Would he want a lump sum, you think, or a monthly payout?
I don't know. I think he would probably be happy with a monthly payout, if we could come up with something fair based on whatever the market value. I know you guys have had a lot of experience, or some of you guys have said that you've had experience buying out a partner. I'd like to pick your brain on like what that experience was like.
I bought a partner out, and we did a formal evaluation. I had a business broker come in and doing a formal evaluation, and we agreed to just take the number of the value he came up with. And then for the payout, we did a 1 lump sum up front, and then did a 6-year payout where he stayed on as an employee. So I got the benefits of writing off what I paid him over 6 years, and he got a salary, which allowed him to start another business and feel secure that he had time to build that business while he was getting paid for 6 years. So it worked out for both of us really well. And I think he took some challenges in his next business that he wouldn't have done had he just had a lump sum. So, and then wrote off all of his bills and gas and everything through the company for that 6 years too. So it was a good tax benefit for me.
So I always wondered, so that business partner you bought out that stayed with you for 6 years, was he as effective over those 6 years while he was starting up another business?
Oh, he was totally out of the business. He
was just getting salary. Okay.
He exited. It's just, instead of me paying out his fee, I got to write it out through the business. over the 6 years. So
Got it. Okay.
he was never back in the building again. So it was just it made for a good workaround and cash flow, the buyout.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
I did one in 2014. It was supposed to be a 10-year buyout. And we probably should have valued the business, but the previous owner is basically one of those guys where here's the number I want. If you want it, take it. If you don't, too bad type thing. So it ended up being okay though. We did 10-year buyout with monthly payments to him. And then he was there for the first year as kind of like an advisor, stayed on. And then we ended up doing like deals every other year, every couple of years. Once we had a chunk of money, we'd offer him a deal to pay him less that year and give him a lump sum instead of paying him every month. And then earlier this year, so we had 3 years left. Earlier this year, we did that and we just paid off the rest of it. So we didn't do it like you did, Jake, as a payment, like through payroll. It would have been a lot better tax-wise to do that, but unfortunately, we did it as just, it came as a distribution to us, or to me, and then paid it after tax. So I had to pay the tax on it, which was a terrible, terrible thing. So,
yeah,
make sure, if you do a deal like that you have it figured out with how you're going to be affected tax-wise. It ended up working out fine for us, but it's just, basically I was paying him personally to buy out the business. So he got long-term capital gains and I paid the short-term on it. So, and then the 10-year buyout, I know the amount to him after 6, 7, 8 years started to feel like less every year, even though it was the consistent number, just because of inflation. So just something to think about if you're doing a longer-term buyout offer.
Congratulations on getting bought out.
Thank you.
How did you manage to redistribute?
Jake, can I steal you?
Sorry, go ahead, Greg.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna steal Jake.
Oh man, that's what I was talking to.
Sorry. Want me to take somebody else?
No, it's all right. I'm just kidding.
All right.
Go for it. Joe, how did you guys manage to redistribute equity? Were you the only partner in that deal?
No, so I owned 25% before that initial deal. And then we brought on 2 partners and then we each bought an additional 25%. So after that deal, I owned 50 and then I had my 2 current partners at 25 each. And then the owner, we had ended up buying out his remaining 75 is what happened.
Right, because you were kind of like, you're absorbing it yourself. So you are paying the partner out of your pocket. Is that kind of the idea? Well,
we each bought 25% in that second deal. So we each would take a distribution each month personally.
Yeah.
And then we would pay that partner with that distribution.
Right. And then you're getting taxed on that distribution, right?
Yeah, it came out of the business. It was just a distribution versus Jake did it, a write-off. You're paying them a salary, you can write it off, but you can't write off a distribution. And we couldn't write it off as a consulting thing or anything like that because of it would have just flagged it, IRS type stuff. So.
Interesting.
But yeah, talk to your tax guy before you really do a deal. Best way to set it up for everybody.
Right. Yeah, I was just thinking about because I have a partner who's 20 and I have 40 and the other partner has 40 that we would try to buy out. Who gets, if we just paid out of the profits of the business, but that's not how it works. You would.
No, if you're paying it out of profits, it's technically you all are taking a distribution to pay him. So that's exactly what we did. It came out of profits versus coming out of an expense. So if you could formulate it, maybe half, we'll buy you out as a we'll keep you on as a salaried employee. You have a write-off, and then maybe it's like 50-50.
Yeah.
You write it off as a management expense or a consulting, and then the other part of it's a distribution.
Right.
But in our case, he didn't want to do that because he didn't want to pay, if you're writing him a salary check, then he'd be taxed on that. And
Right.
he didn't want to do that for 10 years.
Sounds like how Jake did it was pretty tricky. Kind of like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It just depends on
You're dealing with.
Yeah.
Okay.
how gray you want to be.
Right. Totally. But I think that's interesting. It's just like whatever deal you want to come up with to just absorb this. It's just kind of like, oh, we all agree that this is the valuation of the business.
Yep.
Let's figure out a way to make that happen.
Yep. And what I'm trying to do with my current partners, I want to step back a little and de-risk and sell some of my 50%. So we're going to our bank, and I know Cultivate does this with their owners, is they have a deal with their bank set up where if somebody's interested in buying a percentage, they can get a loan through the bank or Cultivate's bank and buy that percentage. Cultivate takes a lump sum payment and it goes into their just owner's fund or whatever they call it. And then the new partner will pay the bank just kind of like a mortgage for those shares.
Yeah.
And if they don't pay, then Cultivate takes them back, pays off the note with the bank, and everything's even.
Interesting.
So I'm talking to our banker about doing that for what I want to sell, just so that I can get a lump sum now and not have to get payments over 10 years or whatever. I can get a lump sum now, but then they have a deal separately with the bank where they're paying them.
Yeah. I've been reading some books on that, and it seems like that's how you would just buy a business outright. Like if I wanted to buy business X, you would take out a loan and use the business as collateral. And so, you have to make sure that the business is worth this certain amount so you can use it as collateral to buy that business. So it seems like it would be the same thing for, buying equity in your own business or selling equity or whatever. So
yeah, and I know you can do it through the SBA too. So it's definitely something to look into, is even helping your partner get a loan through the SBA can help you if you want to sell something.
Yeah, I understand the 7A is all about collateral. So if you want to use the 7A like to buy property, it's good for that. So I imagine it would also be good for buying equity as well.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Thanks. Appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
In the Freedom Tracker, does anybody know what the row enterprise value, what you're supposed to put in there, in that row?
I think that came from the core value report.
Yeah, it's the current value from that report, not the potential value.
Go back to yours and put in the revenue and profit that you originally used so that we can get the correct multiples.
Okay.
Because
All
right
right.
now, when you used a lower number for revenue and profit when we first did this,
Yes.
and now you're adding the higher number of revenue and profit, but we're not adjusting the value accordingly. So if you go in and put in the original numbers for revenue and profit, we'll see what your multiples actually are. And then we could back into what your value should be if we increase the profit.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Yeah,
Does that make
thank you.
sense?
That does.
All right. We're at time. So who did I not get to? Mike. I need to get to you. I figured you and I are going to spend some time on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Okay. Joe, I didn't get to you as well, but I think those are the last two. So
I can do it after this. I got time.
yeah, let me just check
Or
my calendar real quick. I've got 30 minutes right now.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. And then this Wednesday, Mike, is 9 a.m. Does that work for you?
Yeah, I think that'll work. Yeah. What's the office hours again on Wednesday?
9 a.m., 9 to 10
Okay.
on Wednesday morning.
9 a.m. Wednesday would be perfect for me. Yes.
Okay. You should have that email with the, or it should be in your calendar as a invite.
Yeah, it's on the calendar. Yeah. I just didn't look at it right now, but yeah. Okay. Let's meet. Wednesday, 9 a.m. would be perfect.
Yeah, and we'll dial you in for your meeting with your wealth manager on Thursday.
Right. Sounds great.
So I know we're at time, and if people got to jump, but I'd love to just capture really quickly. I know there's some really great conversations that were going on while I was in the breakout rooms. If people could just share kind of one or two big takeaways, so that we have that across the group, in case somebody heard something that the other didn't.
5-unit buildings are easier to get a loan.
That's something I was going to say as well. Sounds like a good advice.
Yeah.
You got a banker if you need them.
Awesome. Anything else that came from those collaborative conversations that was helpful?
There's a lot of ways to buy your partner out.
I know why you're asking.
Yep, I'll be glad to talk to you offline if you want. I know you had another question.
Yeah, that'd be great, Jake. Let's
I think you both make sure that your information's updated in our in the folder, then the tracker that has everybody's contact info.
All right.
You can reach out to each other.
Great.
Okay, awesome. Any other questions for me?
I think Joe's Joe's Freedom Tracker, I think, was in my folder too, and someone else said that his was there.
Yeah,
so,
I edited it.
Yeah.
So as long as Joe,
Was
we
edited.
make a new copy for you and get yours correct, we'll be fine.
Mine was there, and then Joe's was there too. So you might want to take Joe's off of everybody, I guess.
Yeah, I'll go through that after I work
Okay.
with Joe. We'll make sure that there's not doubles for whatever reason.
Okay.
I would like to add something. It's just, I think having some time like this to where we just all bounced ideas around I thought it was a good use of time. Hear how
Awesome.
everybody else is kind of working through things.
Yeah, we're still trying to figure out what the kind of long-term, after this 12 weeks looks like. I always thought that the cohort would be like exactly what you just experienced. Like once you guys have enough kind of common language and understanding, that there's a tremendous amount of, information and value that can be shared amongst the group, because there's so much that relates to exit lifestyle around business, financial, and personal, and everybody's approaching it slightly different and has different experiences they can share. So that's something that we're working on to figure out. Maybe it's some nominal, monthly fee to be able to tag into the group on a regular basis with whoever we have future as well. But so we're still working through the kinks on that. But I'm glad you guys have seen value in it.
Cool. Thank
Awesome.
you.
All right, guys. Well, I'll let you go. I'll see everybody next week, except for Joe.
Hey guys.
See you next week.
Joe, hang around.
Sounds great.
Sounds good, guys.
Great.
Next week.
Bye.
Thank you.